Today's reading comes from the prophet Isaiah, chapter 55, verse 1. And God says, "Come, all you who are thirsty, come to the waters." In the wilderness to this very day, water is everything. You know, for those of us who live here in this developed part of the world with running water, we can't even begin to imagine what life was like during those biblical times. You know, today if you're thirsty, all you got to do is walk over to your refrigerator, get a nice cold bottle of water or a glass of water. But during the time of the Israelites, there was no such luxury. Water was essential to everyday life. I mean, without it, you couldn't water your livestock, you couldn't water your fields, you couldn't even sustain your own bodies. Man can go without food, but we can't go without water. Now, it's within this cultural and geographical context that God makes this promise. To us, okay, living water is nice, but to the readers of this week's weekly portion from the first century and before, this passage was life. Israel being in a dry and dusty part of the world, this passage would have been enthusiastically met by Isaiah's audience. And so the question that's begging to be asked today is, what about you? Are you thirsty? Are you feeling dry? God's presence is the water that sustains our spirits. There can be no existence without Him, guys. And He says, come and drink freely from the waters that He offers. You know, I just got back from Israel, and I want you to feel sorry for me because it was 36 to 40 degrees every day. It was really hot. And, you know, you're schlepping through the mountains, and you're going up and down, and we spend anywhere from $200 to $300 on water alone every trip when we take our camera crew over there because it's just so hot. And water is such a necessity in Israel. It's one of the greatest prayer requests in the country to this day. They need it so badly. I had a friend recently from Israel come visit us here in Canada, and I took him to Niagara Falls, which is an hour away from the studio where I am right now. And as we went to the falls, I've seen it so many times. Maybe if you live here in Southern Ontario and you have guests come from outside the country and they come visit, you got to take them to the falls, and you say, oh no, not again, Niagara Falls. But as I took him there, he watched that water, just millions of gallons flowing and pouring, and he was salivating. He said, look how much water is wasted every second. If we had this in the Middle East, our problems would go away. But as he looked at that water, and as I think about how water is so important to our lives, I think back to God. You know, and as Jesus read the Torah, he would have read the portion of Isaiah that God was the living water. And he said to his disciples, and he says to you today, that he is the living water. And if you'll drink of him, you'll never thirst again. So if you're dry, drink of him and let him be that life-giving water to your soul.